Am I back?
Hey, are you
There
back?
we go.
Are we back?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
We'll just need to make a comment to Joe that around the 20-minute mark to the 21-minute mark, there is a
Yeah.
technical difficulty. Well, hello everyone, and welcome to this episode of the Half in the Bag Disc Golf Podcast. As always, my name is RJ. I am in Northeast Indiana, and this week I am drinking water because we are recording a day late, and it has been a long, long day of work, so the water is needed. And I am joined by a fabulous host that I will let introduce himself.
Hi, everybody. I'm Ian, hailing from the land of Chicago, drinking some flavored water myself, since it has also been a very long day. And I was at a wedding last night, so even though I was the designated driver, I'm pretty sure I ate too much sugar, so I'm just a little fuzzy.
That is always the worst after drinking at a wedding. Is it seem or not even drinking at a wedding, but just being at an event like that is the sugar sometimes just gets you.
But
Oh my
the
gosh.
sugar and all the crazy dancing, like I was sweating, so it's just like, I
yeah.
did not get enough water. That's
Man.
all I've been drinking all day.
Yeah, I totally get that. For those of you that are listening to this, which I guess will be everyone this week, you will notice we do not have Joe. Unfortunately, due to scheduling conflicts, he was not able to join us this week. So since we don't have our producer, editor, videographer, basically all-around great guy, this seems like the perfect time to introduce a brand new sponsor, Joe's Disc Golf. For all of your news, media, opinions, Joe's Disc Golf is the place to go. That's who sponsors this episode. And, well, all of our episodes of the Half in the Bag Disc Golf podcast. If you want to look at some awesome merch that he's got, you can go to joesdiscgolf.com/shop and see the awesome t-shirts and hats. I have both a t-shirt and a hat, and there's plenty of other stuff there too, but I'm going to focus on the t-shirt and hat because that's what I have. The hat that I have is super comfortable. It's an Adidas hat, looks really nice. Couldn't be happier with it. And the t-shirt, super soft, super comfortable. Overall, it's a great product. You should definitely check it out. Again, that's joesdiscgolf.com/shop. And, check out all of his other amazing articles and news stories on the website. You can also check out his weekly podcast, the Joe's Disc Golf Podcast. And you can check that out on his YouTube channel, YouTube/Joe's Disc Golf, or on wherever you get your major podcasts, including this one. You can also find Joe's podcast. Again, it's the Joe's Disc Golf Podcast. Real original. We like to keep it simple here, in case you couldn't tell.
Yep.
So,
Sticking with that KISS principle.
Oh yeah. Joe likes to keep it that way, and we like to follow suit with that. So now, Ian, you said that you had a wedding this weekend. I'm going to assume that meant that you were very busy and you did not get a chance to go out discing this week, did you?
I did not. Saturday was filled with building Bean his big boy bed, and he was helping, so it took significantly longer than normal when assembling a piece of IKEA furniture. But, he was a good helper. He gave me screws when he was asked, and he didn't lose too many things that I was then able to find. So unfortunately, I did not get out. But I know that you, sir, set a new course record for yourself.
Yes. Well, hang on. I do have a question about IKEA furniture, because I've never set up IKEA furniture. But are the parts that he lost the ones that they threw in extras of?
Absolutely not.
Oh, of course not. Of course not.
It was just he didn't lose them entirely. He decided to take a bunch of the hardware and put it in another bag. I just didn't know that he'd actually put it in another bag until I was like, Bean, where are all of the screws? He's like, in bag, Daddy. I was like, no, I'm looking at the bag. The bag is empty. What bag are you talking about, Bean? And he's like, treasure chest, which is what he calls his toy chest. So he'd put them in a bag, and then he'd put them in the toy chest, which I hadn't noticed because I was busy.
Yeah, assembling a piece of IKEA furniture
fit. And oh yeah, no, it was a good time.
Oh man,
it was about a 4-hour process.
So in about 3 months, you're going to find a random IKEA screw in his toy chest.
No, I made sure that I've accounted for all of the hardware because this is a bed that when he gets older, we can just flip it over and then it turns into a little lofted bed.
Ooh.
So I have a bunch of other hardware and stuff that I was like, I don't know. I need to make sure that I have this. It's all, taped together and it's now sitting with the instructions in a safe location that is very, very far away from Bean.
Yeah,
tallest shelf I could find.
Are you suggesting that he would lose it again?
Yes, he loves to play with anything that's mechanical, anything that you can use to build or destroy with. Bean is 100% about it. So he also likes to go disc golfing. It's just his idea of disc golfing is either throwing it at my legs, my crotch, or behind him. We haven't quite gotten the whole throw and release straight in front of you.
So what you're saying is that Bean does not want a sibling, is what I am hearing.
No, Bean is very content to be the only one.
Oh man. All right. So yeah, as you said, yeah, I went out. I actually set a whole bunch of personal bests this weekend. I played one course for the first time in my career. I finished 18 holes under par. I finished, which of course means that I, set a new best on that course. I also set a new personal best as far as, under par went. I went 2 under as opposed to my previous best was 1 under. So, really exciting for me. It was something where I just went out and I focused on putting myself in good situations. And weirdly enough, that worked. There were holes that were, a little bit further than I can drive. So I'm like, okay, I need to make sure that I have a nice clean look so I can lay this up. And, there were other holes where it was, okay, I need to get it down this way and not worry about, the slight curve at the end, because if I get out down to the end of the fairway, then I'll still be in a good position where, I can take an easy par or, something like that. I obviously picked up a couple of birdies, had a pair of bogeys on the round. So, 4 birdies, 2 bogeys, ended up, there were a couple holes that I was a little bit disappointed that I couldn't salvage a birdie on, but that's the way that life goes. That's the way that disc golf goes. And, gives me something to look forward to in the future. So it was really exciting. And I started off throwing okay. And then about hole 3, I threw a shot and I'm just like, oh, this is going to be a good round. Was feeling pretty good to the point where I'm like, man, I might be able to pick up an ace here, which would be a first for me. I've never hit one before.
Oh. I wish I could say that I've hit an ace. I've seen other people hit aces, but I have never sunk one.
Yeah, I think it was last week where we talked about I was with Joe when he hit one. That I thought for sure was going to hit 2 different trees, and it didn't. I guess circling back to our sponsor, I guess he praised Treesus.
He did.
Very, very hard.
He did indeed.
Yes, and did not transgress against Treesus.
Correct.
Yes.
Because if you aggress against Jesus, you get kicked in the opposite direction that you want.
Treesus?
I forget. I have not really been fully indoctrinated into the Treesus and his Treesusiness, but I'll learn eventually.
Yep. But,
so yeah, I was gonna say I was looking at your the UDisc card that you posted. 83% from Circle 1, 72 from Circle 2.
No,
sorry. That's Gursey 2. That's not putting. Yeah.
Yeah.
But still, 83% from Circle 1. That's nice.
Yeah. It was definitely something where, and there were some. It's weird because a lot of my Circle 1 putts felt like tap-ins, but obviously I got some good. Some good drives. I was in Circle 1 about a quarter of the time off of my drive. It was all par 3s. There's some par 4s on the courses, but not in the 8 positions that I was playing.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the putter was working really well. It was a relatively calm day, so that definitely helped too. I get real nervous putting in the wind, and to the point where my confidence kind of gets shot. But yeah, so that was definitely a big help. Was I was putting really well. Actually, one of the bogeys that I took, I had about a 25 footer, but if I lined up directly with the basket, there was this itty bitty skinny tree that went right through the center pole, basically.
Yep.
And so I took a bogey because I set up a little bit left and just hit the chains, and it just spit out on me. Not that I'm bitter about that at all, but
those are always the ones that are the most infuriating, because you're I had it.
I had it. If I aimed, a half an inch to the right, or let go just a little bit better. But then I also picked up a couple of kind of what I would call bonus birdies as well, ones that I wouldn't necessarily expect myself to, just because I was playing well. And starting to really, this is the course that's the closest to me. So, and it, for the most part, kind of placed my game mostly shorter, relatively technical holes, but not over the top punishing. As in you can scramble your way in, through stuff and whatnot. So, and definitely a lot of forehand friendly holes, which I am more of a forehand player, similar to Joe.
Oh God, that is the weakest part of my game is forehand. I kind of look like a monkey doing the nasty to a football when I try to throw forehand. It's not pretty. It's really not.
I am so curious about this now.
It's the ugliest thing. I was better before the accident, but I've never quite recovered, with the left leg, getting the muscle memory back for throwing forehand, because I know the hand motion that I need to make, but the rest of my body is just like, you want to do what?
Yeah. No, it's something that once I figured out the grip for it, it kind of came. I find it easier to keep it level, because I started throwing discs with, I started throwing discs back when I was in Cub Scouts, going to a campground that had a disc golf course, and I didn't know what disc golf was. So it was, take the $5 Frisbee from Walmart and chuck it 10 times at the basket, and then go, man, I don't understand how this is a par 3.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah. But then, as an adult, my first real experience throwing discs was in college playing Ultimate, where I probably developed a better forehand than a backhand, weirdly enough. I love throwing hammers, but that's a whole nother story.
I think most people who've played Ultimate and disc golf find it much easier to throw forehand in Ultimate, but I'm guessing that has to do with the depth of the disc.
Yeah.
It lends itself to being a better feel.
Mm-hmm.
But
well,
I could
and
be
that
wrong.
was something that it took me a long time to figure out the right grip, and because in Ultimate you kind of, it's so deep that you almost throw, or that you almost, oh gosh, I gotta think about what my Ultimate forehand grip is now, but basically, it kind of flips up a little bit, and um, so it was definitely a transition that was not easy and not simple, and it took a long time to get to, but I ended up getting it quicker than I got my backhand. So for a long time, I played a lot of forehand, which still translates to today. I'm getting a better backhand, but I'm still, if I've got to hit a 10-foot wide gap that's just going straight, I typically throw forehand because I feel more comfortable with it, and I feel less likely to totally miss the gap.
Joe knows that I'm very adept at making discs somehow fly very similarly to a forehand, but I hucked it backhand because I just I angle that fucker in ways that people go, why? Why did you do this? And I go, just wait. It's going to level out. It's going to S-curve and it's going to be great. It's going to land exactly where I wanted to.
Yeah, I mean,
They're like,
that's exactly what playing disc golf is about, is, figuring out what the strengths and weaknesses of your game are and putting those into the sport.
oh yeah, no, it has always been fun to watch Joe golfing next to myself, because I'm just like, oh, if I could throw that way, that would be such an easy shot. I'm like, okay, now you see this tree? I'm gonna hit that tree. I'm gonna hit that power line, and it's gonna bounce exactly where I need it to. It's like, why would you do that? I'm like, it'll get me there.
Because I can. That's why.
Why not? Watch me.
Yeah. So,
But yeah, no, that was a really nice round, man.
Thank you. It felt really good. I think I asked like 3 or 4 different people if they wanted to come out disking with me, and everyone was busy, and so I just went out and played it by myself. And I'm like, man, I'm really bummed there's no one else here to watch this. And I'm like, that's probably a good thing though, because it means I'm taking my time and I'm focusing on what I need to do. Who
exactly.
knew that focusing on what you need to do translates to doing what you need to do?
Well, that, and you don't have any of the pressure of anyone else performing, better or worse than you. You can just get into the groove and work on that form.
Yep, exactly. Which is a lot of what I did. It was a lot of, okay, this is how I want to play. This is, and it actually almost bit me a little bit. I will admit I did take one mulligan in my round, because on 18, I was like, yeah, I think this is the disc I want to throw. It's gonna be a little bit understable, but I'm gonna be able to just kind of flip it and let it ride flat and then crash down, and I should avoid the water. Well, apparently my form was too good because I got way too much power on it, and that thing just basically took right off. It went over the river and onto the other bank, which luckily is basically where my car was parked, so it was something where I could go and get it.
You at least missed the water.
Yes. Water wasn't too deep. It was pretty dry this past week, or especially leading up into this round. So luckily, it would have been retrievable to get it, but it wouldn't have been fun. Yeah. Fortunately, of course, my disc landed in a patch of poison ivy, so I'm like, yay. Yes. So I'm like, okay, I gotta go around, and so yes, for those of you that are not sure what poison ivy looks like, remember, leaves of 3 that look kind of like a mitten. Not good.
If you're sitting and saying, hey, is that weed? no, it's probably poison ivy. Don't touch it.
Yeah. Unless you're in California, in which case it might be weed. But
Uh-oh. Okay, so anyway.
right. So yeah, I think as I was saying, it was overall a pretty good round. Really focused on my game, really focused on improving what I was working on, and it paid off for me, and it felt really good. Probably one of the best that I've felt coming out of a round in a while. So, which makes sense because it was, like I said, a new personal best. So, pretty,
Absolutely.
yeah. So, I think that's enough of talking about my ugly disc golf game. So let's talk really, really briefly about the
Some
Pro
professionals.
Tour stop. Yeah, some professionals from this week. For those that missed it, the Santa Cruz Masters Cup was a Silver Series event in obviously Santa Cruz, California. And, we'll go through the winners really quickly, but for those of you that don't know, this was like I said, a Silver Series event. It's held at the famous disc golf course Dela, which is famous for its rollaways, and it's I believe it's a 500 and some foot hole all the way downhill, like big downhill, which made me think, how would you attack that hole? Are you just hoping to find your disc? Because I think that's how I would attack it.
If it's 500 down?
Mm-hmm. But I think it's a fairly steep downhill. Or at least that's my impression of it.
At that point, knowing that no matter what disc I'm throwing, it's gonna just hook into the left real hard. Mm-hmm. I'm probably gonna give it almost. I'm gonna try to have it hit somewhere halfway down the slope, but just roll and hopefully roll as far as it can. Or I'm gonna throw it and huck it way to the right, knowing that it's gonna just float on back down to the fairway. That's one of those holes that I would honestly be like, I'm gonna practice. I'm just gonna find something that like is close enough to it, not necessarily on the course, and just sit there and go, all right, I'm going to throw this, handful of drivers until I know exactly how they're going to land. Because that's rough.
Yeah, that's just listening to the description on it just makes me go, yeah, I don't know exactly what I would do, but yeah, knowing that it's gonna hyzer out because of just the distance that I'll have to carry makes me think, yeah, just throw something super anhyzer, super to the right or left, whatever you prefer for forehand, backhand, whatever, and just pray that you can find it afterwards, I think would be my thought.
I was going to say, you and everyone spotting, just going, okay, there it is. Oh, and there. Okay. Pick up my bag and I'm just going to walk straight.
Yes. I don't know how well you can see it, but that is a picture from the D-pad, I believe.
I mean, that is a really pretty scene, but no, that is rough.
Yeah. It's the hole, or it's from the top of the world is basically the nickname of it. But yeah, I remember seeing that one and thinking about it and being like, man, I feel like I would lose a disc just trying to throw that one.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
But let's talk about some people that did significantly better than I would. Do you want to do or start men or women?
We usually do ladies first, right?
Yeah, usually.
Let's oh my goodness, I can use words today.
Let's
do
hard.
Ladies then.
All right. That works out perfectly because I have the women's field open and I don't have the men's field open. So that works out well. So yes, the winner, shout out to Sarah Hokum, who finished even for the tournament. Second was a tie with Katrina Allen and Ella Hansen. Fourth was Maria Oliva and Owen Scoggins. Sixth was Jessica Weiss. Seventh was Jen Allen. Eighth was Juliana Corver. Ninth, Kat Mersch. And 10th, Lisa Fakis. Again, a Silver Series event, so not all of the I guess not all of the names that we would typically expect from a field. Overall, like I said, one person finishing even, 10th, so Lisa Fakis finished plus 17. If you didn't get a chance to watch this one, pretty good battle brewing on the last day, although I know Sarah Hokum actually came from the chase card, not the lead card, to end up bagging the win. So,
well, good for her.
Yes.
I was going to say Owen Scoggins is a name that I don't recognize you guys have saying that much. I'm guessing probably more of a local pro.
No, she's a little bit older pro, I believe. So actually where is it? Yeah,
I just pulled her page up.
Uh-huh.
Oh, so since 2011. Okay.
Yes. So she actually won the Santa Cruz Masters Cup. So for people 40 and older, last weekend, the weekend before. So a little bit older than some of the other members of the field. Really, really good putter is kind of the breakdown on her. She's probably the best putter in the women's field, or at least one of the best putters. And that always makes her a very difficult competitor, although probably doesn't quite have the distance to be a consistent top one or two player, but a very talented player for sure.
Only plus 6 over. That's not bad at all. That's a solid day, or solid tournament.
Solid tournament, yeah, really.
Yeah.
But so that's the women's field. On the men's side, let's talk about the. Are you ready to feel old yet?
Oh, I've already feel old.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I believe Gannon Burr picked up his first career Pro Tour Event Series win, finishing 24 under, one stroke ahead of Matty O and James Conrad, who finished second. Chris Clemens was fourth. Lori Lettinen was fifth, along with Joshua Anton. Chandler Fry, Anthony Barella, Paul Macbeth, Andrew Miranda, and Austin Hannum all finished tied for seventh. One thing to note was that Ricky Wysocki was scheduled to play this, and then he had swelling of his knee that prevented him from playing. But obviously the big one was Gannon Burr getting his first win. He's such a young kid. Just seeing the pictures of him remind me just how young he is. He's such a baby.
Oh yeah, but I mean, it's truly impressive the amount of restraint and control he's been showing, and I mean, this season alone has shown some really explosive growth for him overall. So, he may not be able to drink yet, but he's got a good career ahead of him if he keeps, just learning as much as he can from each of these tournaments.
Yeah. I mean, he's I think he's 17 now. He might only be 16 still. Yeah. Okay.
Still.
Yeah. But yeah. Obviously he had the big breakout performance at the at the Las Vegas Challenge to begin the year. He's been playing well, but maybe not quite that well recently. But then, obviously, this week taking down his first win. Hats off to him. I can't wait to see him keep growing and developing and boy, it's going to be fun to watch. He's a really good player, and I'm just hoping that he stays healthy and stays engaged in the sport too. I mean,
Healthy and humble.
Yes, and humble, very much so. That's I think a good point.
Because I mean, yeah, he's it's one of those professional players you look at, especially as someone who just enjoys going out mostly recreationally. You're just like, oh yeah, I remember when I first discovered this, and it's just like, yeah, I guess I could have been like, yeah, I'm going to be a professional disc golfer. That's what I'm going to do. But that really wasn't what I wanted to do. But here's this kid who's doing it, and he's doing what he likes.
Yep.
And good for him.
Oh, absolutely.
There are so many people who will never be able to chase their dreams, and he has been afforded this opportunity. So it's really nice to see him taking it seriously.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't know how much, how many interviews you've heard from him, but I know it seems like he's got really great support from at least his mother, who I know, is very involved. I think she caddies for him, definitely drives him around because I know my parents would not be okay with 16, 17-year-old me driving all over the country.
Not so much. Yeah, my parents would be like, you're going to have an adult that goes with you. Well, that and I wouldn't be able to get a hotel or motel room on my own because I think you need to be at least 18 now.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah, and like everything else, if he has to get a rental car, that's 24, 25.
Yes.
So it's like, yeah, going on family road trips.
Yeah, no kidding. That's a heck of a road trip to go be a professional athlete at 16, 17 years old. So
there is one more thing that I would like to bring up. My prediction so far on the curse of Macbeth. You can't say that name. He's starting to succumb to his own curse. He needs to change his name. He'll be back up at top.
Well, is it really a curse when he finishes seventh? Tied for seventh.
Well, it could be. He's slipping. See, this is where it starts. You're like, well, it's not too bad. And then all of a sudden he just keeps going down until he changes his name and all it just rockets right back up.
Well, I think that brings up an interesting point because something that our co-host and sponsor Joe released this week on the Joe's Disc Golf website was the power rankings. The very first Joe's Disc Golf power rankings. Paul Macbeth probably a little bit lower than most people would think, as he on the MPO side he is sixth. Not surprisingly, this week's winner Gannon Burr came in first, James Conrad second, and Ricky Wysocki third. After playing really well, but then obviously having to miss this tournament probably hurt him a little bit. You can find those rankings at joesdiscgolf.com. And then by clicking on the Power Rankings tab, there's an MPO tab. Anything that you find interesting from the Power Rankings, or do we want to let Joe really get after those on his show later this week?
Yeah, I think we should let Joe specifically get into the nitty-gritty. But I do like the fact that he does include the little blurb at the end of the Power Rankings about when they will be updated, which is after all major events, and that this is specifically a mathematic equation as opposed to anything that has like human input being voting, other things like that. Now, if you disagree with him, you can leave as many comments as you want. Just tag Joe's Disc Golf.
Yes.
Just let them know what you think.
Yes. And, while I think that there is some room for disagreement, I understand that they're mathematically based. So mathematically, I think they make sense. And at least on the MPO side, they kind of pass the eye test, with, again, some room for disagreement, but hey, that's what makes power rankings fun, right? Now,
Yep.
over on the FPO side, a little bit interesting. Again, maybe not the names that you would expect at the very top. Katrina Allen is number 1, Kristen Tatar is number 2, and Valerie Mondahano is number 3. He only has the top 15 here, or on the women's side, he has the top 25 on the men's side. Probably just because, again, there were only 28 people that participated in the Santa Cruz Masters Cup, so a little bit smaller fields, a little bit harder to pick out exactly, the same, or I guess less data points, really, I know is what he's talked about.
Yeah.
So again, those are mathematically based, so if you want to scream in pain about how terrible they are and how one specific person is not in the top 3, you can send angry messages to Joe at Joe's Disc Golf on Twitter.
I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how they change and how accurate they become as there are more data points. So I mean, to be honest, as someone who is essentially like dipped his toe into this particular deep end of the sport, I'm like, all right, I'm going to pay attention to this because otherwise I'll have no idea what I'm talking about.
Yes. And again, you can find the FPO rankings by going to joesdiscgolf.com and clicking on the Power Rankings tab, and then there's a nice little lovely FPO tab. So,
Indeed.
yeah, so that was a brand new feature that just came out. I believe he released those today.
Yes,
And
as of recording, it was roughly 2 hours or so, 6 hours before we started recording.
That's what it has on my page, but who knows how accurate that is. So, I'd assume fairly accurate.
So, because he's not here, and because of our fantastic sponsor being joesdiscgolf.com, Joe did actually post an opinion piece that I was interested to hear RJ's take on a lot of what he brought up, which, if for those of you who aren't familiar with the website, this is talking specifically about Joe's opinion article called The Case Against Phones and Smartwatches During Dgpt Events. So that is the article that we'll be referring to.
Yeah, so if you go to his homepage, it's been posted now for, by the time that you read this, by the time that you listen to this, probably about 6-7 days, about a week or so. And basically, if you want to get Joe's in-depth thoughts on it, listen to his podcast. Again, that's the Joe's Disc Golf podcast, or his YouTube channel /Joe's Disc Golf on YouTube. Really, he kind of brings up 2 specific points, one from a competitive balance standpoint and one from a safety standpoint. And again, his main case is for not having them at Dgpt events. That would be Silver Series, majors, and then obviously the tour events. And I think he makes a lot of really good points. The first one that he brings up is safety. I can't speak for, Emporia Country Club or, Dela or, any of these pro courses, but at my local courses, I think about the holes that are near each other. And, just thinking about, again, the course that I played over the weekend where I shot my best round ever on, hole 3, 5, and 7 are... You would have to have a bad shot, but it's not impossible to hit the tee pad of any one of them from a different hole. And I guess that same thing could be said about 6 there at that same course, which doesn't mean a lot to anyone. But, again, local courses, these type of things are, again, a bad tee shot, an errant tee shot, a bad shot in general, some bad luck with maybe some trees falling or something. I get it. It's a safety hazard. I'd like to think that wouldn't come up on a Pro Tour event. But again, just the distraction of having them, and having, earbuds or headphones or whatever, I think is a, kind of I think it's a reasonable thing. And then the other thing he brought up was a competitive balance standpoint, specifically saying. Oh, go ahead.
Just in terms on the safety point before we move on to competitive advantage or disadvantage. So I understand that I agree that pairing devices with a smartphone of any kind could lead to distractions, especially where even if it's not like a fallen tree, you're just not paying attention to where you're walking. You happen to hit a divot, poorly, and you sprain your ankle, or worse, you tear something because you just hit it at just that right angle. So yes, I agree in that regard, totally. When it comes to let's see, what's the word I'm looking for? In terms of a focus, though, I do understand the desire to be able to have sounds or music or something that would be at a low enough level that allows you as a player to be in your headspace, even though you're surrounded by tons of people.
Oh, yes.
Now, it would be one of those things where it's like, maybe it's legal to have one in, one out, so that way you can still have whatever it is that is your
whatever gets you into your flow state.
Your flow state. Thank you.
Yeah. And which is a really big thing in sports psychology and performance psychology is getting into that flow state, getting into that right headspace. So I do totally get that. Part of me wonders if this is going to sound extreme, but if that could almost be used as like a performance enhancer, or if that's just another tool to help an athlete focus.
When it comes to psychology, I would have to say it wouldn't be classified as performance enhancing, because in theory, if I stood in front of a mirror and just yell at myself, and that's what gets me like psyched up and in the game, then technically that's illegal as well. And how do you control someone yelling at themselves? It's not a thing that you can specifically do.
Yeah.
So, but that's why I said the legal thing would be like one in, one out. So that way, you can hear, other people if there is an issue or someone yelling or for other safety concerns. But you can still have that like, okay, I've got my focus. I can tune into this when I'm throwing, but when I'm on the field walking, or teeing up, I can still hear everyone. I can hear the tech directors, everyone, so that way it's still safe.
Yes. Yeah. No, and I think that's a really good point. I definitely get that there are, so much of sports is the mental side of the game. And, if that's what gets someone into that state, I think that that's perfectly reasonable.
Yep.
And I totally get that. I don't necessarily know what the, I do think that that's a good, kind of compromise, is maybe going to the half and half earbud. The only problem with that is, how do you control the music, or, the sounds or whatever? which
Yes.
I think kind of gets into the second aspect of it, kind of the competitive or the fairness aspect of it.
Absolutely.
Which, as Joe brought up, it would have been really easy for at the first major of the year, which I am totally blanking on, when Elaine King messaged Paige Pierce's caddy. I tend to agree with Joe. I don't think there was a malicious intent. I think that everything was, done with the best intentions. But all that it takes is one person to not have the best intentions. And, I think the example that Joe brought up specifically was having someone scout the course and saying, everything's coming up short here, put some more into it, or everyone's going long here, take a little bit off of it. A lot of people are finishing to the left, or, even like a case that could have happened this week, where one person in the FPO field that was competing for the champion or for the title and actually won it was on the chase card. So, somebody could very easily be following that card and texting someone saying, well, so-and-so just went into the water, so, you can play a little bit more conservative. You have some breathing room, something along those lines. Obviously, if they're checking scores, they can still see that.
Yeah.
But basically, using it to affect how you're playing your game, I think, is the concern. And so
finish up.
Well, I was going to say, and so I think that's where you get into kind of this gray area of, yes, I wouldn't mind letting people still have, a headphone in, something like that. I don't know how they can control that without then also potentially opening that Pandora's box of, well, what happens once there is enough money in it where, do we get a Houston Astros sign stealing scandal, in disc golf where people are, using technology to change how they're playing the game and not necessarily in a positive way.
So, yes, I understand all of these points, and I do still believe that they have merit. The problem that I have, especially coming from not the medical world and the athletic world, I'm coming from the tech world. This little box, this is only going to get more and more and more ingrained into everything we do, especially if you are talking about we're going to grow the sport. We want to be able to show more real-time stats and figures, so that way everyone can be connected and they can feel like they are on the green watching it happen, even if they're hundreds or thousands of miles away. So at this point, I don't think we need to be advocating for not having them at the events. I think what we need to advocate for is for the PDGA or a partnered entity to essentially create a driving mode. So that way, if someone does want to have like pre-downloaded music or something like that, that they can have, you only have access to that. You can't use the internet. You can't see texting. You can't do anything except for put in your live score and have your pre-selected content. Because if someone goes through the trouble, and someone could go through the trouble of essentially having someone sit there and do an audio recording of like, okay, so at 150 feet from the tee, if you dogleg left here, blah, 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 blah. Yes, that is a possibility. But literally someone could do that and just have it written out, and just read it.
Yeah. I
So
mean,
it's
I know that I've played courses, or I've even played tournaments where I'll go and I'll do, I'll take notes in my phone about, okay, this is how to attack this hole. This is what works for me, because that's what a scouting report is essentially. And I think you do bring up a good point that there's probably going to be times, in the future where people are going to want to look at a video of something to see, okay, what did I do wrong on this shot? What did and I don't know that that's something that can or should be done in the middle of a round. But again, I think of even high schools now are using different apps and whatnot to track, basically to track different aspects of games, no matter what the game is. And
yeah.
so I certainly don't I certainly do not begrudge pro athletes wanting to do that same thing, keep track of their own stats, keep track of whatever measures are important to them. Because, well,
Well,
yes, UDisc might be, great for your average person to say, oh, I hit, I was doing 80 some percent putting and I was in the green regulation this much, and et cetera, et cetera.
yeah.
They might have other things that they want to look at or other metrics that they want to track.
And that's why I would again advocate that we need to be looking at how can we get a piece of software that so now maybe the pros aren't even in control of the phones or the devices. It's no personal phones, but here when you've signed up, you come for your tea time. Here is your little smart device.
Here's your Palm Pilot.
Here's your Palm Pilot. You can,
That's
it
a
loads up
reference.
everything. We'll send you, a copy. You can download to UDisc. It'll load up and integrate in, and you can get all your stats.
Yep.
Yeah, or maybe it's okay. Your personal phone has to go to the caddy. The caddy will input everything for you, and it's very easy to, as an official, walk up to the caddy and make sure that the caddy is actually following the rules. Because they aren't the ones who are specifically throwing a disc. Like,
Yeah.
you could look over their shoulder.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think there's a lot of nuance to it. I think Joe makes some really good arguments for not having them at Pro Tour events, because, yeah, it is kind of weird to see people on their personal cell phones during major sporting events.
But
It's a
at this
little
point,
bit weird.
it is, except for, I mean, you work at a high school. I don't know about you guys, but I've done some, hey, I'm coming to talk to a theater class or something like that, because it's like, oh, here, this is what I do. If you're interested in this as a career. I remember when we weren't allowed to have a cell phone anywhere near a classroom.
Oh,
And
yeah.
now all it is laptops, cell phones. Like, half the kids have an earbud or two earbuds in. And it's just like, so
Yeah.
cool.
I mean,
Exciting.
I know that my athletic director, who is also a coach, will send information to his teams via text message in the middle of the day. And I'm just like, in high school, I never would have gotten that. Or, well,
Nope.
I would have gotten it, but if a teacher had seen me getting it, I would have been in big trouble.
Oh, yeah. Way more trouble than just scribbling a note and passing it to your buddy in class.
Yes. But yeah, I mean, overall, I think there's a lot of nuance. I do think that there's room for them, but I also think that we need to be careful about how we're using them so that, again, people aren't using them improperly.
Oh,
For
yeah.
the time
Well,
being, I think that, what he's describing for, again, just for Pro Tour events. This is not your local
oh, yeah.
A, B, C tier. There's no way on earth that I could keep score if I wasn't able to use my cell phone in a local C tier event.
Oh, no. And so, although I do I do understand and agree with many of the points. I'm purposely playing devil's advocate since he's not here.
Yeah.
Because what I'm hoping to do is that for those of us, or for those listeners that we do have, maybe we can spark an interesting conversation or just drum up a little bit more like discourse, because that's the only way that this is going to get taken care of is at the grassroots level. Yeah. So we should, talk about it, because otherwise it'll just, nothing's going to get done.
Yeah. No, I mean, like I said, I think you bring up some really good points about some different alternatives that, quite frankly, I hadn't even thought about. So, I think that was a really good idea. And, as bad as, the devil's advocate, I guess, role can sometimes get, I think that was a really, really beneficial thing in this case.
I was hoping to bring something slightly different to the table, and I mean, again, that's kind of everything I have to say on it. So if you have not read the article, or this is your first episode and you've made it this long and haven't gone, oh dear God, why am I still listening? Go to Joe's Disc Golf, check out his original article, and let us know what you think.
Yeah, it should be just right on the homepage. So as you said, let us know what you think. For those of you listening, really quickly, as a reminder, go ahead and make sure that you get your Skip Ace Fantasy Disc Golf predictions in this week for this weekend's OTB Open. I went ahead and put mine in for our weekly league, which you, listener, can join. You can do that by going to skipace.com, and you can put in the code 3CQF to join the Half in the Bag Disc Golf Weekly League, where you can face off against Ben, one of our co-hosts, Joe, and myself. Ian, I don't think that you've gotten in on the action yet.
Yeah, I should probably do that now that I seem to be a somewhat
a regular
regular
host. Yeah. So that's something that one way that you can join in the action on the Half in the Bag Disc Golf podcast. If you want to ask a listener question, you can always do so at Half in the Bag DG on Twitter. You can also submit your photo for Disc of the Week. This past week was a really interesting one from Joe's collection, and I would highly recommend that you go check that out. Again, that's on the Half in the Bag Twitter at Half in the Bag DG. Again, you can follow our sponsor and co-host Joe at Half in the Bag, not at Half in the Bag DG, at Joe's Disc Golf. You can find him on Twitter and Instagram. And where can they find you?
Typically, you can find me on Twitch. That's twitch.tv/Popperfresh, Popr Fresh. Same name pretty much anywhere. Twitter, Facebook, things like that. Keeping it simple.
Yep. It's that KISS principle again.
Yep. And RJ, how about you?
Well, nobody wants to follow me on Twitter.
Well, not nobody.
Just my 49 followers that get inundated with my Half in the Bag retweets.
Yep.
But yes, if you really want to follow me, you can follow me on Twitter at RJWilson131. Again, pretty simple. Not a whole lot of hot takes coming from that Twitter account, but hey, whatever. I'll take it so I can get up to 50 followers. So,
ooh,
yeah, fancy. I have a lot of followers.
I don't have that many either. It's okay. I'm super cool.
Yeah.
What can I say?
Whatever. I never post anything on Twitter, so
I need to be more regular.
I post a lot more through for being the person that doesn't post anything on Twitter. Somehow I ended up as a Twitter admin for the Half in the Bag Twitter.
Well, that's where all your energy goes to then.
Yes, that's where most of my tweeting goes to. Except I made the mistake of I follow the Butler Bulldog, just like the mascot.
Oh no.
So I end up getting a lot of Butler University related tweets on my timeline, which when it's the dog right. is great. When it's not the dog is meh.
Questionable?
Yeah, it's just kind of like, okay, whatever. I don't care that they've signed this many people. I'll care again next year during basketball season.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, there we go.
Yep.
But I think that just about wraps it up. This episode will most likely, almost certainly, only be available via audio podcast. As I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, our videographer was not able to join us. But typically you can find this in the video podcast version on Joe's Disc Golf, YouTube channel, which is YouTube/Joe's Disc Golf. And if you are somehow watching this and you want to listen to it, you can find us wherever you find your major podcasts. So I think that pretty much does it. I say I
believe good. So. Hopefully we've shilled enough for Business Daddy, and he's happy with the product.
Yes. So I think that covers it. Ian, thank you for taking the time to do this podcast with me. Our first solo podcast together, I guess.
Yes, this is. I've felt like this went very well.
Yes.
Hopefully if he's gone again, then we can rock out another fun episode.
Yeah, definitely. So listeners, and I think just listeners this time, thanks for your time. Thanks for listening. Let us know what you think. And as always, enjoy your round.
Good night, everybody. Bye.